Good evening. I'm Dick Champion, and this is the Horror Report. Tonight's film is Jaws, which is an American thriller film directed by newcomer Steven Spielberg, based on the 1974 novel by Peter Benchley. It stars Roy Scheider as Police Chief Martin Brody, who, with the help of marine biologist Richard Dreyfuss and a professional shark hunter Robert Shaw, hunts a man-eating great white shark that attacks beachgoers at a summer resort town. The film also stars Murray Hamilton as the mayor, and Lorraine Gary, who portrays Brody's wife. The screenplay is credited to Benchley, who wrote the first drafts, and actor-writer Carl Gottlieb, who rewrote the script during principal photography. Shot mostly on location at Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts from May to October 1974, Jaws was the first major motion picture to be shot on the ocean and consequently had a troubled production, going over budget and schedule. Universal Pictures' release of the film on June 20th, 1975, to over 450 screens was an exceptionally wide release for a major studio picture. The glowing audience response to a rough cut of the film at 2 test screenings in Dallas on March 26, 1975, and one in Long Beach on March 28th, along with the success of Benchley's novel, generated great interest among theatre owners, facilitating the studio's plan to debut Jaws at hundreds of cinemas simultaneously. Now over to Ian Johnstone, who was on location. What the bloody hell is this? Get on with it! I'd say I was jealous that he got to go there, but it doesn't look that nice.
We're off the east coast of America, on the ferry from Cape Cod to Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is a tiny island which achieved an international fame 5 years ago this summer when Senator Edward Kennedy drove his car off the bridge and into the river at Chappaquiddick. It's a tiny island, the holiday preserve of the rich from New York and from Boston. But this summer is the location for one of America's biggest motion pictures, Jaws. Based on the novel by Peter Benchley, it's the bestseller in England at the moment.
It's the story of how a killer shark marauds and threatens the lives and the livelihood of a small New England beach community. Making a feature film on dry land is a complex enough process. There seem to be at least 3 people for every job. Making a feature film at sea stops just short of a nightmare. It's the second day of American shooting on Jaws. They've already been to Australia for the underwater shots of the shark.
Turn on the walkie-talkie, please, Freddie.
I don't think Freddie can listen.
Freddie! Sendar, I need to talk to you, Fred. Turn on the walkie-talkie. Stand up, we're not shooting.
All the usual panoply of assistant directors with megaphones, continuity girls, sparks and chippies are obliged to float round the action. They are still in the process of learning which side is port and which is starboard.
Guys, we can't shoot right now. Hold on. Have that belt go out and pull the anchor up and reset it off there, okay?
The film stars Roy Scheider of The French Connection and Richard Dreyfuss of American Graffiti.
The director said he faced out of the studio and he said, "I can't do it in time."
But in the age of director as superstar, the movie will probably be sold on the latest American star behind the camera, Steven Spielberg. Jaws is one of the hottest properties in the film world this year. The book was an instant hit in America, and the film rights were commensurately costly. To shoot for 13 weeks at a budget of over £1 million is something of a rarity these days, so the producers, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, must have a lot of faith in their property, and even more in their director, Mr. Spielberg, who is only 26 years old. In America, he's already provided them with a financial and critical success in Sugarland Express, which he directed. He won the award for Best Screenplay at the recent Cannes Festival. Age never seems to have daunted Mr. Spielberg. At 20, he was directing episodes of Columbo in Hollywood. At 22, he made Duel, the story of a motorist being chased by a lorry, which got rave reviews when it was eventually released here. And now Jaws. It's lunchtime, and the afternoon dialogue is being doctored a little.
No, because he'll be so energetic, and he'll be screaming and yelling, "It's a great white, it's a great white, I knew it all along." And there's only room in there for one quick line, expository line about the mate. The mate. Where's the mate? Dead. We'll have to where's the body? Why is the boat torn to pieces? Because it's a great white shark. And then all we have to do is cut out. Where are they feeding? You know, because I don't know. There have been known attacks. There's a theory called the bumping theory. And it's not a theory anymore, it's a proven fact. That sharks will nudge and bump a boat or an intended victim before they attack. Not so much in a playful manner, but in a way of testing its defenses, to see if it's going to bump back. And when it doesn't, it comes in for the kill. Kosher salami!
Spielberg himself had the idea for Sugarland Express. He found it in a newspaper.
It had to do with the loss of their baby, and it had to do with this media event that, it just sort of sprang up all of a sudden. In Texas, there's a posse theory, and the theory is when a fellow officer is in trouble, everybody jumps into their automobiles, all the fellow officers, and they fall in behind to try to help the guy out. And the posse theory sort of is, the backdrop of Sugarland Express. I was able to, within the budget of my picture, afford 40 police cars, and in real life, 90 police cars were involved in a bumper-to-bumper pursuit that was strung out over about 150 miles. I had seen Goldie in Butterflies Are Free, and there was one scene she had with Eileen Heckert in the car that I felt was it was really heart-turning, and I knew that there was a serious actor somewhere underneath that laughing facade. She was anxious to break out of that mold and do something dramatic and do something very serious, and that's why she became a part of the company, and that's why I hired her.
You seem to get very strong performances and naturalistic performances from your actors. What's your technique?
I don't know if it's so much of a technique. I asked the actor to, for the most part, to give me too much, so I can then take it down to a level that I feel is believable. I don't like casting actors who are low-key people. I like people with energy. So in the initial casting, I think that half of what a director does is cast his picture well, and the other half is the control of the people within that. But I think half of the secret, when you do see a good picture and you like the people, it's in the casting. I like people who are outspoken and who are very large, so I can bring them down to life level. Here's that King Kong dialogue. When they run into the jungle, they're all talking. Yeah. They had like 40 extras, and everybody had 3 things to say. And there was also the picture, they're ad-libbing. Gee, it's big. You see it coming there? Look out, Charlie! Fire now! Throw the grenades! Duck! Everybody had about 3 lines to say, and they all overlapped each other. It was terrific. They haven't made a movie like that since King Kong.
So there's a lot of what the hell's the matter? What's wrong with it? It looks like it's broken.
There's a lot of
that rear cleat's all torn up.
The scene they're taking is one early in the film, where a fisherman has gone out to try and catch the shark, but it's holed his boat, and it's sunk, and it's killed him. And the 2 men, the sheriff, Brody, and Hooper, the shark expert, come upon his body.
Roll sound.
It's taken pretty well all day to get this shot. Time and tide still refuse to obey the director. One of the actors has to climb from the rescue craft into the half-sunk boat. An easy enough task, you might think.
Whoa! Right.
Over half an hour is wasted for dry clothes and new makeup. By then, the light is wrong, and the shot is put off till the following day.
It seemed to me almost fanciful in the book that a shark could actually threaten people on a large boat. But nevertheless, this is the case, is it?
Sharks have... Here's an interesting example. When we were shooting the Australian sequences of the great white sharks, one of the great white sharks jumped into the cage boat and sank the cage boat and sank the cages. The shark grabbed between its jaws, which can close and squeeze at 21 tons per square inch, grabbed and twisted a cage and then sounded with the cage. And when we recovered the cage, it was torn up, completely torn up.
It's not very big. It'll never hold that boat. It'll hold something.
This is my second day at sea, and I have 54 more days to go. And if I survive this, I'll have learned a lot, because right now, all I can tell you is it's twice as slow shooting at sea as it is shooting on land. Because when you set your camera for a shot, invariably the boat, which began here, is over here when you're ready to shoot. With tide and wind, and there are a lot of factors that take into consideration. You really can't hold composition, hold frame. You have to do a lot of pot shotting and shooting loose at open sea.
To pull the anchor up and reset it.
No, it doesn't come easily. I don't even think about it. If I thought about multi-million-dollar pictures and all the equipment and all the responsibility, I'd probably go bananas.
What a young upstart. He'll go nowhere in this business.
This is a great white shark, the largest, most voracious man-eater in the world. It roams all the 7 seas, feeding on seals and porpoises, and anything else that suits its fancy, including human beings. Just last February, a great white shark only 7 feet long, a baby, attacked and killed an 11-year-old boy in a harbor in Australia. My name is Peter Benchley. I wrote a novel about a great white shark, a book called Jaws, and it's about to become a movie. Last August, I visited the movie set to watch the shooting and see how a story about a 20-foot killer could be translated to the screen. Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, an island off the eastern seaboard, beautiful, picturesque, and about to be disguised as the fictional town of Amity. There was something nicely ironic about making the film on Martha's Vineyard. I grew up on a neighboring island, Nantucket, where I first encountered sharks. We used to fish for swordfish, but they were rare, and we caught sharks instead. The crew had been here for months, an army of more than 100 with dozens of trailer trucks. Hollywood had come to Cape Cod, and contrary to all the legends, was leaving it as pristine as it had ever been.
Rare stories.
David, the producers of the movie are Richard Zanuck and David Brown. I wanted to convey the visceral fear people have of being eaten, and I asked David Brown if that same fear was what he wanted the movie to illustrate.
Oh, indeed, it's the shark's eye view of the human body, the fear of disfigurement, of being maimed, of being brought down to an utterly ignominious, horrifying death for no purpose except to serve a mindless appetite that appealed to us.
In the book and in the movie, we have a shark that is 22 to 25 feet long, and I know we were concerned at one point about exaggerating the possibility of this.
Well, the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries booklet describes the maximum length of the great white at 36 feet, and we did think it was Hollywood hyperbole when we started, but no longer.
We originally had him at 30 feet and then felt that that would be stretching credibility.
Dick was awful stretching credibility to maybe 40 feet, but nature took care of our fear.
David, you and I have talked about this. We were both around during the shooting of a big beach panic scene, and we wondered, God, what would happen if something really did come in during a scene like this and begin to eat people?
Indeed, the Cape Cod radio only last night reported the spotting of a great white so close to the shore that it was observed by a lifeguard, which adds further credence to the notion that our beach panic might indeed have been invaded by a great white, in which case we would have had a double beach panic, or more horrifyingly, our actors would have thought that it was part of the movie. We would have had to use the old Pearl Harbor line, "This is no drill."
This is a scene from that beach panic, as it will appear in the film.
Everybody, please get out of the water. Everybody out of the water, please. Room for the folks behind you. Let's go. Right out. Take your time. Please, let's go. Up to the beach.
The movie was filmed entirely at sea. There were no tank shots, no miniature boats. A barge acted as mothership, and on windy days, of which there were dozens, it pitched and rolled. It was fascinating to see the complexity of a filming operation, the number of people, and the amount of machinery involved. The stars of the movie: Robert Shaw, who plays the fisherman Quint; Roy Scheider, the police chief; Richard Dreyfuss, the ichthyologist; and the director, Steven Spielberg.
And on the turn to the equipment, I'll hit the explosion. And when you hear Robert start the fire extinguishers, you go over, grab the equipment, and I'll cut. It's effective that way. It's effective the other way.
I asked Steven what kind of film he was making.
It's a shark film. A shark movie.
Is it a horror shark movie? Is it to scare people? What will it do?
Well, it will, I think, initially scare people. It will cause a great increase in I think, aquaphobia next summer in all the beach resort areas. But it's really a picture about sharks in general and one great white shark in particular.
The next day was a Sunday, and I talked to Robert Shaw at his beachfront home.
I wrote the character of Quint as a man who begins with great contempt for sharks and is finally obsessed with and driven to kill this particular one. Is that how you are going to play the character?
Well, that's how I play the first part of the character, yes. I am totally obsessed, but a kind of respect comes in because of the size, the enormity, the magnitude, and the power of this particular white shark, and then I get even frightened. But it's true, I started out with contempt, and of course, Quint was in the Indianapolis disaster.
In the movie, Quint describes his experiences after the sinking of the Indianapolis. It was one of the worst disasters in history, and it has forever altered Quint's perception of sharks. To see friends eaten alive right next to him, well, here's how he remembers it.
You were on the Indianapolis?
What happened? Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. He was coming back from the island of Tinian to Leyte and just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 1,100 men went into the water. The vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer, you know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret, no distress signal had been sent.
They wanted to go get live sharks down there to make it obviously real. And I said to the producer, suppose you don't get a big enough shark. This one's supposed to be 25 feet long. He said, so we'll hire a midget and put him in the cage, make the shark look bigger. And I said, all right, big joke. So they went down there, and lo and behold, they got 3 16-foot great white sharks eating a horse over the side of the boat in Australia. And they weren't 25 feet, so they put out a call for a midget, and they got this guy, qualified diver, and they got him on board the boat. And he looks at these 3 monsters eating this horse, right? And he says, I'm not getting in the water with those things. He said, well, I thought you were a qualified diver. He said, I've never dived in my life. I needed the work. So they put a cage overboard, and they said, you can't get hurt. Nothing's going to happen. Nobody's ever been hurt in one of these cages. He says, all right. And they gave him some breathing lessons. And he starts for the cage. Before he can reach the cage, the biggest of the sharks crashes into the cage and gets their cables like this. And he puts his head through the cables backs off and gets his gills caught in the cables, rips the cage off the boat, takes it to the bottom, and beats it into an unrecognizable shred of aluminum trash, which he just smashes the bars and rends it to pieces.
It's really a way. It's the only medium where you can recreate the end of the world or the beginning of the world just because you had a strange dream one night and you made a deal with a strange producer who wants to make a film like that, and then you realize the film, and a year later, this strange little figment of your imagination becomes 70 feet, 40 feet, you know, boffo business. Right about here on the spot, and we began barnstorming ideas on what to add to the book, what to take out of the book. It was right here in this rock we decided to lose the love interest, which we felt deserved a movie of its own, and was kind of made impotent because it was in a movie that was a straight line adventure film about the shark and the town and the hunt. And so we made some major decisions sitting right here, and two of the moments in the picture that literally get the audience screaming and jumping out of their seats were thought of right here. I consider the movie a sequel to the novel rather than an adaptation. It's very, very hard. I had never experienced adapting a novel before, and and Peter Benchley, who wrote the first 3 drafts of the screenplay, admitted finally that a screenplay and a novel are two different, kettles of fish. It was a very exciting movie to make. It was a frightening film to make. Most of the fear came because it was a physical production. We were out on the water with big waves and trying to keep the camera boats and the generator boats and the lighting boats and everything that had to be anchored down to a 30-foot sandy bottom, at the same time being tossed and turned by a very heavy sea, keeping all that situated and trying to hold composition, because I'm sort of a stickler for composed frames, and I found it on Martha's Vineyard, especially in the Nantucket Sound, you really can't compose very much, because when you put your camera here to shoot the boat over here, 10 minutes later the boat's over here dragging anchors, and you have to pull back up on the anchors, and that's an hour later. So we average about 35 seconds of film. Working in the sea 4 miles out, where you're working between boats that are slapping against each other with divers in the water. Well, just by reading the book, the last, I think it was 110 pages of the novel, The Hunt for the Shark, was so enthralling and so suspenseful. Yeah. It's frightened me so much. And I was so angry at being frightened that I wanted to frighten back. I'll make this movie and scare them all. All directors think they're immortal, All cameramen do too, because they're behind a camera, and there's a great story that a camera operator told me that really typifies feeling immune to those kind of dangers when you're making a picture about real life and fictionalizing it, or even a documentary. And this camera operator was photographing a demolition site where a huge steel ball was being levied into buildings, and the buildings were crumbling. And the operator, who was also the director, asked if the steel ball could be swung toward the window 20 stories up into the building about to be demolished, so he can get a shot of the ball coming close to the camera. And he played it safe. He said, give me 10 feet of clearance, and I'll kind of zoom in at the last moment. Give me 10 feet where the ball comes to its final point and then swings back, and no closer than that. So the operator said, it's kind of dangerous, and I don't know if I can give you 10 feet. It'll vary between 10 and 5. He said, don't worry about it. So he's up in the window with his camera, and he says, okay, action, action. And he's shooting out the window, and the man shrugs his shoulders, a New Yorker, of course, shrugs his shoulders. It's his funeral. And he moves the levers, and the ball goes back for the momentum, and like a pendulum comes towards the building and comes right up to the guy's eyepiece. Missed him by 1/2 of an inch. And he began to laugh behind the camera. He began to say, wonderful, it's a great shot, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. Wait till we see this in dailies tomorrow. And everybody was white. And they told him, you came within 1/2 an inch of losing your camera, or having at least your camera pushed through the back of your head. And he felt totally safe, because he was making a movie. He was seeing 185. Nothing happens when you're sitting in the theater watching 185. When you make a film, at least when I make a film, I have to be passionate about the subject matter. I have to know that that's all I want to do for the next couple of years. And I have to know that's where my lifestyle will be 2 years from now. I just think it's very important to to spend the time and, consider each film kind of the beginning, middle, and end of your life. That sounds very philosophical.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Robert Shaw has been telling me about his... You've got he's doing these two plays. Give us a little clue as to the plot of the one you said was about violence and various...
Oh, well, my play in London is about, in 1819 in England, 10 people tried to murder the whole of the British cabinet. Murder them. Like murdering the whole of the, you know. And what they didn't know was that the leading conspirator was a government agent, shall we say a CIA man. He gave them all the money, all the grenades. They couldn't figure out how you murder the whole of the British cabinet at once. So they put an announcement in our famous newspaper, The Times, that there was going to be a dinner held by the whole of the British cabinet. There was no such dinner. All the poor fellows went along there. They were all arrested, and every one of them was hung, drawn, and quartered. That's what the play is about. Vanessa Redgrave is playing the leading conspirators there.
The agent lured them into that...
45 actors I've got in that cast. So one day, I went from seeing the first run-through of my own playwright with 45 actors. Then I go to, as an actor now, to Harold Pinter's play, Old Times, in which there are only 3 of us, in which I play a man who gets drunk and is worried about the relationship of his wife and her best friend. Then in the evening, this is why I'm so tired, because I haven't slept for 5 days with that damned strike at London Airport. In the evening, I had to go to Shepperton Studios and finish off little bits of Lord Randolph Churchill.
Oh, how do you know?
Listen, I'm not asking for pity, because I know businessmen have to do this and all sorts of other people have to work very hard, but that's actually what's been happening the last week.
I don't know whether which is worse in the acting profession, to have no work or 3 things at once like that.
It's always paradoxically bad either way. When you're working, it's terrible because you're usually doing rubbish, and when you're not working, it's worse.
And then if you're trapped in a play on top of that with somebody you can't stand, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had to go
many times, yeah. I always pretend that they're my children. You know I got 9 children.
Yeah.
I always pretend it's my favorite son or daughter, depending upon the sex of the person opposite me.
Well, isn't it kind of embarrassing if they're 50 years old and you pinch their cheek or something?
No, you just look at them as if you like them, like I am you now. You see, you just look and you smile away. All you have to do.
What have I done?
Well, that's what I mean. I've played a lot of tricks like that. There's one famous actor I know, but I'm not going to mention because Robert Morley once said to me, you can say anything about actors you like in private, but there's a limit to what you say in public, and I've stopped that.
Well, tell us about the one you don't want to mention and what a rat he is.
Well, I just pretended he was my eldest son, that's all. So every time I look at him in the picture, I'm smiling away, and it's charming.
Has there ever been someone who couldn't stand you and you knew it and you didn't know why they couldn't stand you?
Frequently. I know within 2 seconds now if a woman likes me or not. If they like you, they laugh at your jokes. If they don't like you, they never do. That's my absolute test. You laughed, you like me, that's okay.
Yeah.
I always know.
And so that's true, I think, to a great extent.
What if
my wife must hate me. She never laughs at me.
You just realized that not once
Well,
has she
I mean,
ever...
if the theory is
That's the
right.
test.
My wife laughs all the time.
Well, couldn't you have a humorless woman who loved you? And if you did, then you'd never know.
I suppose it'd be a great relief.
Yeah. How are your apples?
Well, I've moved.
That's an old American expression.
Yeah,
No, you have an apple orchard, I know.
Yes,
you did.
Richard once came to dinner with me in England at my house, and I loved gardens, so we planted 3,500 apple trees.
Yeah.
But I've left England, and I now live in Ireland, and right on the west coast. You can't see another single house from where we live, and we're 75 acres there. Because I have to retreat from these American television raids and, coming into cities. I've grown to hate cities, to be serious. And there you can't see anything, and it's the last unspoiled coastline in Europe. We have this house where there's a lake, and they caught a 16-pound trout, brown trout, there, unpolluted, on Sunday. And there's 50 miles of this lake goes as far as, you can't, on a misty day, you can't see the mountains, and you cannot see another single house, and the drive is 1 mile.
And in Ireland besides. But you have to kill yourself doing 2 movies and 2 plays
to
constantly to
afford it.
pay for that.
Right.
And you're not there now.
No, I'm not there now. There's 3 Irish fellas, helpfully and hopefully they're not members of the IRA, because I'm a perfect hostage. I mean, I am English, and maybe they've burned it up right now for all I know, but I hope not. Anyway, we should get out of Ireland, by the way.
You English should get out of Ireland.
I think we should get out of Ireland.
Well?
I hate to side with one of the Kennedys, but... he caused a great stir in England, and they hate, but they won't listen. Actually, I think we're doing more harm by staying than good. It's going to be murder, bloody awful murder. It is a terrible situation. But the south of Ireland is ruined economically now. All the hotels are closing. Americans think that it's all one island, and it was okay.
They think
the
that
south.
violence is everywhere.
But it's creeping into the south. They rob the banks, pretend that they are IRA men,
Sorry, we're cut off with this message. We'll be right back. Did Jaws take more than 14 days?
Yeah, so 14 days with a wrap party. It was about the length of the wrap party for that film. We were so happy to get off Martha's Vineyard.
I asked innocently.
155 days, actually.
Was that a record for you at that point?
It was a record for a lot of people, here and abroad. Yeah.
I was on Martha's Vineyard.
I saw you on Martha's Vineyard with Robert Shaw.
Yeah, and I was doing a thing with Walter Cronkite, that's what. And I talked about Jaws being made, and I went over there and I ran into Shaw, whom I also did show with. He was in trouble because if he worked much longer, he would lose his, whatever it is, the complicated thing with taxes and so on, where he stayed in the country too long.
He put all his money in Ireland, and he didn't pay taxes, British taxes. But if he stayed too long in America, everything we paid him for Jaws would go to the IRS. And he was, every day he would remind me that he could only be there one more week, and we were only in our 40th day of shooting. And he was saying, if I'm here one more week, I lose all of my salary. And in fact, he lost about 3/4 of the money to the IRS because he overstayed his legal welcome.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, but I had an image of you, which I'll never forget.
Oh, please tell me. I love those.
You came to visit Robert and Walter Cronkite, and you were standing on one of the picture boats watching.
Yes.
And you had a little parka on, you had a little scarf on, and you were standing there all by yourself.
A little one, not mine?
No, it was... And the whole crew was watching you with great envy, and I was wondering why the crew was staring at you. And certainly they recognized you as being who you are, but then I began to look into their eyes and I realized that you got to go home that night. And everybody else had to stay for 6 more months.
It was like someone visiting a prison.
A prison, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. How did you deal with that psychology? I mean, everybody with that burden on them must have...
We had people crack up. We really had people crack up. We had our gaffer, our lighting gaffer, go a little crazy, and he began wearing his baseball cap backwards, and he got a bullhorn, electric bullhorn, and began narrating the making of the movie, sitting on a small stepladder on a pitching and rolling boat, without just narrating who was coming aboard and who was doing this and who was making a mistake and picking up a plant, which is another union. You're not supposed to pick up a plant if you're a carpenter.
Yeah.
And
too much pressure.
Too much pressure. We had people go back to L.A. With their eyes swimming.
Well, of course, the old timers were saying, boy, these smart-ass people from Hollywood, they didn't even know about tides.
They're right. Yeah, the Coast Guard also came over one day in a helicopter with a bullhorn, laughing over the bullhorn. They keyed the mic and began to laugh, and we had to endure that for 5 minutes.
What were the... Did you get it on tape? What were the natural wonders and phenomena that you didn't know about? Besides tides and sky, I guess, were the things.
Well, the one natural phenomena that none of us had any idea was that we couldn't walk on the water. We all assumed that we could get out to the ocean. It would be like working on dry land, or at worst, like on shallow jello.
Yeah.
And it turned out that when you've got your boats in the water and the wind starts to blow, all the anchors move. And when you're all set for a shot, there's a camera boat and there's a lighting boat with a generator, and there's the picture boat with the actors on it. And when the wind began to blow, each boat would move in a different direction, usually away from the center. And I often was shooting a horizon line, where before there was Scheider, Dreyfuss, and Shaw, there was nothing but a horizon. And it was chaos. It was total chaos. None of us, we should have really cooperated with the Coast Guard and let them show us how to make the movie, because none of us were seaworthy.
That would have saved a month, maybe, or something?
It would have saved a few weeks. The shark not working is what cost most of the time.
Well, the mechanical
shark never
not
worked.
Working. I thought you meant that a live shark went on strike.
No.
It's about the only union that hasn't.
No. Brian De Palma, who came to the location once to visit me and left the very next day, went back and told all his friends his impression. He saw the first test of the shark, and he went back to New York, and he said, words won't describe it. And he made a hand gesture. He said, this was the first test of the shark, and the jaws open like this, and then I say, okay, close the jaws, and it's like so. And
I hate a slack judge.
yeah, me too. 6 months of this.
But how do you ever get a shot from when the camera's on one boat and the actors are on another, unless it's dead calm, because the camera's always going to be moving?
Well, actually that adds to the excitement. That's very good. If it's dead calm, or if the camera's too locked down to the boat, you don't have a feeling that you're on the water. It could even look like a process shot, like a rear projection effect.
So a little movement.
So a little movement is great. As a matter of fact, the man who photographed Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, Michael Chapman, was the camera operator on Jaws, and he's an extraordinary operator. He handheld 70% of the movie just to keep some movement in the frame and still maintain a flat horizon line.
Would you ever do that on land? Put a little movement in just to get a little, or would it have to be explained by being on water?
No, I haven't made my personal movie yet. That's a personal movie effect right there. Is when we walk into a room with a camera and it's all sort of verite. But I've always been a little more slick in terms of on land wanting to lock the camera down and essentially standardize most of the movements.
Preview of the movie Jaws that includes the author of the book, Peter Benchley, and the star of the movie, Roy Scheider. Jaws, the chilling story of a prehistoric eating machine, is first, and here's a sampling of the movie. Jaws. It's a movie that I think will single-handedly make beach parties obsolete. We'll have more on it in 2 minutes when we come back, right after this. I want to start this segment by reading you something. Quote, "The great fish moved silently through the night water, propelled by short sweeps of its crescent tail. The mouth was open just enough to permit a rush of water over the gills. It was about 40 feet from the woman, off to the side, when it turned suddenly to the left, dropped entirely below the surface, and with 2 quick thrusts of its tail, was upon her." So begins Jaws, one of the most gripping and certainly best-selling adventure stories of this decade. And please welcome the man behind this book, its author, Peter Benchley. Well, Miss Shelley. How did you and sharks get together?
I was a kid in Nantucket, and we would go fishing. Once a year, my father said he'd spring for one day fishing for swordfish. And swordfish were as rare then as they are now. And we'd go out and look for swordfish and catch none, but we'd see the sharks littering the ocean. And we began to catch them. For lack of anything else, you pay $100 a day once a year, you might as well catch something. And so we started catching sharks, and I got fascinated with the length of time it took them to die and the way they behaved and the general air of primitive malice or malevolence, I guess, that surrounded them. And I read as much as I could about them and learned a lot.
I read the book last summer. I happened to be out on the eastern end of Long Island where the book is approximately set, and it was a scary thing to read it on the beach, and I guess that's where a lot of people out there were reading it. But I don't know anything about sharks, and I just want to know how realistic is it. Are there sharks, for instance, out around Montauk or East Hampton or those resorts out?
One or two. The largest great white shark ever taken by a fisherman was taken off Montauk, Long Island. It was taken by Frank Mundus in 1964.
In all the world, you mean?
Ever taken by a fisherman. Now, when you get into statistics here, it's very good to be specific because they go, weird statistics. Frank Mundus caught a fish in 1964, a great white shark off Montauk that weighed 4,550 pounds and was 17.5 feet long and took him 7 hours to catch. And it broke the scales in Montauk and had to be measured on a beach. Last weekend, a friend of ours was out fishing with Frank, and they caught a 9-foot blue shark, and on the way in to the boat, the blue shark was severed in half with one bite. And this, again, was off Montauk, and Mundus said there is no question what that was. Something had to ingest a 9-foot fish and cut it off like that with one bite, and that was a great white.
A great white shark.
They're there.
Oh, great.
Last summer, during the filming of the picture, I think, Roy, there were 2 great white scares in Nantucket Sound. Big ones. 16-foot fish.
Were mechanical sharks used for all the scenes, or did they use any documentary footage of great whites?
They went to Australia for 6 weeks before the first unit shooting.
Mechanical sharks?
Never heard of it.
Never.
Robert Shaw is willing to get eaten by a real animal.
Is he a mechanical shark?
Oh! No, they got 30,000 feet, I think, of real great white shark footage in Australia, including an attack on a cage with a man in it. And then they intercut it with, obviously, the special effects department. And Verna Fields, the editor of the picture, did such a fantastic job to me that you can't tell when the real shark is in and the fake shark is in.
Well, I've just seen the clips, but the tension is unbelievable. You really do hate that thing. It's so hard not to be frightened of sharks as long as you're in water, because I think humans generally feel out of place in water, I mean, with few exceptions, and you feel kind of vulnerable, and I wonder how many people are going to take it so literally that they're just not going to go swimming this summer.
It's going to happen. People have said to me, you've gotten me out of the water forever, which is crazy. You know, the likelihood of getting eaten by a shark is about as great as being attacked by lightning. And it'll happen, but it's nothing you can worry about. On the other hand, I mean, you're going to walk down the street and say, holy smokes, man, that's going to get me, that lightning bolt.
I was once almost hit by lightning, and now I'm not going swimming.
Now you're not going to walk on the street anymore. The fact of this as a possibility is always very real. There's a piece in Newsweek last week about a big cover-up in Daytona Beach. People have been being eaten off the beaches in Daytona, Florida, and the news media have been told to keep it quiet because it's bad for the tourist business. And, you know, Newsweek refers to this as life imitating art, but it happens.
I don't think there'll be any unreported shark attacks. I mean, every one that occurs, there'll be headlines in that town. We've got another Jaws on our hands.
Right. How do you feel about some of the kind of professional jealousy that's developed? You know, the reviews of the book, honestly, were mixed, but the sales are phenomenal, and I read it, and I thought it was a great, great book. How do you feel about the kind of feeling that other authors apparently have, or at least some of the statements I've read, you know, here he just had a great idea, and he made an amazing jackpot out of it. Do you respond at all to
Initially,
that?
I had an ego problem with it, because the reviews were not mixed, as you say. They were poles apart. Either people loved it, or they hated it. There was no question of people saying, it's all right, you know. People, really, it's a fantastic book, or it's the worst piece of trash ever written by a human being. And fortunately, there were fewer of those, of the nice ones. So mixed is a strange word, but yeah, the first time you see somebody hate you in print, it's bad.
Yeah.
And then when you get a little bit of the resentment kind of thing, oh, he had a good idea, but somebody else wrote it. Or he had a good idea, and it wrote itself. Or they sat and manufactured a bestseller. Eventually, you get jaded, as I have. It's probably a bad thing, but you learn that your ego isn't important, and if people want to knock at you, let them knock at you.
Well, do you think the critics were right and the level of taste in the American public is low, or do you think that the critics are just full of it and they're just out of step with people?
The critics who liked it very much, I can't disagree with them.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
You know, I get this on interviews about Peter's book and about the film, and I think that first and due credit should go to him, because the narrative in that book is what sold the book. It's what excited people. It's what drove them along. And that same narrative is what's in the movie. And it's his idea. He wrote it, and he has provided it for all of us to play with.
Right. Just don't go swimming, that's all. All right, well, thanks to both of you for being on. I wish you even greater success. It's a great movie, and I'm sure that it'll be a smash at the box office, and I'll be there when it opens. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Roy Scheider and Peter Benchley. Roy Scheider has been acting professionally for 15 years, but it wasn't until The French Connection, where he played sidekick to Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle, that Roy really attracted national attention and an Academy Award nomination. Since then, he starred in The 7-Ups, and Sheila Levine is dead and living in New York. But tomorrow his latest film opens, and it's going to take the roof off. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of Jaws, Roy Scheider. How you doing?
Shark fans?
You know, it's funny. Mario Puzo once said that after The Godfather started and he started writing Godfather 2, that he was in the mafia business. I wonder if after doing enough of these interview shows, you might think you're in the shark business.
I certainly do. Certainly do. You think we could do Jaws 2?
Jaws 2, yeah.
Son of Jaws, Return of Jaws? Might be that way.
It might be
that way.
You went to a sneak preview, and I guess the audience really responded.
Well, it was the first time I'd seen the picture put together, and the audience scared me, because the people just, they get so emotionally involved that when they're frightened, they really let it rip. And I'm not used to sitting in a theater where people go, ah! right next to you, and they really scare you, and then they talk through the next scene. Did you see like this? And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching a picture for the first time, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, watch the movie. They're so scared they don't want to watch it that time.
How does it feel having co-billing with a shark?
Well, we'll have to talk about that. No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful because the shark plays such a marvelous part in the film. He's not Walt Disney. I mean, there's no Walt Disney aspect to this animal at all. And he's something that an audience can really hate. He's tough. He's a great antagonist. So you're only as good as your antagonist, right?
Do you think, I know that your role is the role that people will empathize with. You're the most human, ordinary kind of person in the movie. I wonder if the shark will get all that hate wrapped up in him, if people will associate everything evil with the shark.
Well, I think they will. I don't think there's any of us that hasn't gone swimming or been in the ocean that hasn't been aware of all kinds of creepy crawlies down there. And your imagination does strange things. So this is a chance to really let it all out.
I wonder how many people will be going in the ocean this summer because of your movie.
Not too many. I think the lifeguards will have a soft season. There won't be any more... It'll be... It's all right, go ahead. Get in. Get in.
I just by coincidence happened to be on Martha's Vineyard when Jaws went into production, and it was in the late spring, kind of May, I guess, and it was freezing cold up there, and all the natives on the vineyard, they're kind of a smug bunch anyway, we're all giggling how all these out-of-towners had come in thinking they'd get this balmy New England summer, and they were freezing.
It's chilly up there. And we were up there early in the summer, and of course everyone wanted to work in the film. Big movie company comes to town, Universal brings in this whole crew, and everyone showed up to volunteer to be in the beach scenes. But this was early June, and they were out there from about 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night, and they froze. They were covered with goosebumps all day long. I didn't envy any of them.
Did it really slow down the production, the fact that it was so chilly and so inclement?
Not so much in those scenes, but on the scenes on water. It's very difficult to shoot. We had rough weather. The sea would swell 5 to 6 feet on some days. We had fog. We had sailboat regattas on the horizon line. The America's Cup trials were up there. And we'd shoot a day's work, and they'd go back and look at the rushes or the dailies, and they'd see a little white speck on the horizon, and that would be it. We'd have to do it again.
Jaws received mostly positive reviews upon release, with quotes such as, "It's a film as frightening as The Exorcist, and yet it's a nicer kind of fright. Somehow more fun because we're scared by an outdoor adventure saga instead of a brimstone and vomit devil."
I once asked Spielberg to name his favorite private moment in Jaws, and he said it was the scene you're about to see, in which Roy Scheider, the police chief, swears at having to dish out some scraps for the shark. We laugh at that, and then we see something that stops our laughter.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Slow ahead, if you please. You heard him. Slow ahead. Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this.
You're going to need a bigger boat. Great line. That was the first time we see the Jaws in Jaws, and it's a full hour into the movie, and that's one of the secrets of Spielberg, that he was wise enough not to show us his monster right away, as was done with the subsequent Jaws pictures that he did not direct. And what he liked about that scene was, you hear we bleeped out what Roy Scheider says, but he said he would sit in the back of an audience, and he would wait for that moment because the audience would laugh when they heard the obscenity and then scream. And so he turned a laugh, he said he enjoyed turning a laugh into a scream. And when you know that about him, then you can tell that Spielberg obviously enjoys manipulating his audience. I like the idea of him sitting back there waiting for that moment, guiding and directing the audience. And it's true, when you are in a Spielberg film, there is a sense that someone else is in control of your mind and your eyes. He is not just content to throw random pictures at us. He wants to run us and run us ragged, and we certainly experienced that in Jaws, the film that made him a star director.
There's no doubt in my mind that Steven Spielberg makes just about the best pictures of anybody for seeing with an audience. I remember seeing Jaws in 1975 with about 1,200 people in Chicago. The audience would levitate simultaneously, 1,200 people, and then they would come down laughing with relief in a way because there was fear and the reason that they were scared and so forth. This is interesting, the way that he does what Hitchcock used to say that he liked to do, play the audience like a piano.
And I'll tell you another thing that he's doing. You're right about suburbia. You have it in Duel, and you also certainly have it in Jaws with this exclusive little island. Here's Roy Scheider away from the big city cop, and now he's on the island, and these incredible things happen. And I think what Spielberg also knows, because he grew up in suburbia, is that he imagines he's the filmmaker now for the shopping center theater. Think about it. You have all these suburban people. It's not downtown with the people dressing up going to movies anymore. It's all these people driving into the parking lot, going to the suburban theater. They're boring. They're all dressed with the same little emblems on their clothes. They go in, and wow, they see people just like them, and then boom, something exciting happens. You got all these people hoping that something will happen to them that's exciting in their suburbs, and he delivers it.
With every screening packed out, and the film making tens of millions of dollars in America, a new phrase has been coined, blockbuster. Now we'll get some cinema-goers' reactions from seeing the film.
I thought it was terrific. Power.
Dick. Smoking loge is sold out. Seats downstairs in the first 7 rows only.
All right. We're almost there.
Okay, Richard.
On camera. Just first the people.
Was it good? Very frightening.
Very tasty.
No.
Hello, everybody.
Yes. Oh, yeah, the picture. Yeah, I thought you meant. Did you know a shark really exists, or was it?
I really don't know.
No, well, we're not going swimming tomorrow. It's killed? You're scared? No, you're not.
Sam.
You gonna sleep well tonight?
No. No.
Oh, sure. They're not really here, I hope. You don't look very affected by it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'd read the book.
I took my hat off for this.
No, he's got enough light. You don't need them ugly. What is this?
Do you think that kind of sharks really exist, or is it all fiction?
Yeah, it's true. They certainly do.
You say no?
No, I don't think they have teeth.
They do. They do.
You're talking about the broad you with you. I mean, I'm sure.
You don't think they really exist out there like
Sharks?
that?
Sure they exist.
Are there any out there now? Wait, say don't know what
About 100 sharks. Well, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. They were pretty close.
Is that right?
Sharks. I don't know what type of sharks. About 50 yards off the beach.
Where was that?
Guys are really ripping it through.
Currency on TV.
It has already made more than $100 million.
Kind of been uneasy and keep turning around and looking to see what's behind me as well as in front.
I read the book and I saw the movie, and I think it's a poor man's Moby Dick.
A bite out of you just the same.
That's Jaws Jr. there.
Following the film's release and its great success, more merchandise was created to take advantage of the film's release. with everything including soundtrack albums, t-shirts, plastic tumblers, a book on the making of the movie, a book the movie was based on, beach towels, blankets, shark costumes, toy sharks, hobby kits, iron-on transfers, games, posters, shark tooth necklaces, sleepwear, water pistols, and more. Here's NBC's Dick Swine to tell us more. Over to you, Swine.
Not that long ago, a young man named Peter Benchley wrote a book called Jaws. It was a bestseller. A film was made from the book. It too was called Jaws. It has already made more money than any motion picture in history. The scientific types are horrified, but Jaws has made sharks popular. Well, society being what it is, popularity means success, success means money, and guess what this report's about?
We can't keep them in stock. It's not just the Jaws book itself. There are the books on the making of the movie. There are 2 of those. And then the big hardback that we've had in stock for years. It's a Jacques Cousteau book. Cannot keep them in stock. I mean, and it's like all different age people, not just kids, but teenagers, older people. I find it really interesting. It's like the impact of the movie, was horrendous at first, but now people are really interested in the shark itself, not just something scary.
Shark repellent bracelets like this one I've had on for about 2 months now. I put it on when we first got them in. They're made up in New England somewhere, and the legend goes that sailors used to weave these on the boats, and it used to keep away the sharks. I first heard the legend when they came in from our supplier. We guaranteed them against shark attacks. Anyone that was attacked by a shark could bring it back and would give them their money back.
Shark's business has been terrific. Dollars and cents, I would say it'd go about $20,000. Just wish we'd had more of it to sell. We ran out about the middle of August out of shark's teeth, out of shark's jaws. We still have a few little tiny necklaces left, but that's about it. We were getting anything we could. It even looked like a shark to sell. Any plastic teeth, we had a company making plastic teeth. We got earrings and necklaces from them. They're all gone. Everything's gone. It even looks like a shark.
Jaws, I imagine Jaws will even be big as a...
Jaws. 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 Jaws is the game where you try to fish out what's in the jaws of the great white shark.
I'm going for the camera. Made it.
But be careful, because if you remove the wrong piece, the jaws will get you. And you're out. Jaws. It's you against the great white shark and each other from Ideal.
Thanks for watching The Horror Report. Jaws gets released on Boxing Day in the UK, but let's have a look at what the Japs thought of it.
内裏券は当劇場ではお使いになれませんからご注意くださいませ。券は3名入ってない内裏券は当劇場ではお待たせしました。どうぞ。両側でお切りしております。お待たせをいたしました。左右両側でお切りしております。ご命名にお持ちください。お待たせをいたしました。はい、お時間がございますからごゆっくりご入場くださいませ。入場券は命名をお持ちくださいませ。まもなく開場いたします。入場券は命名をお持ちくださいませ。お2階はまもなく開場したばかりでございます。お席も十分にございます。はい、並んでください。右側に列ができております。
すごく大きい。
And compare with the reality of Jaws.
あらかじめご了承の上ご入場くださいませ。お席は立ち見でございますからご了承の上お入りください。衛生券ただいま発売いたしております。はい、では大臣します。
小人。
おりますからご利用くださいませ。一旦場内入りまして、エスカレーター登ったところでお直りいたしております。そちらをお求めくださいませ。
やってるわけやろ。
はい、入場券がおかになりましたが、劇場側に長い列ができた。
You yelled shark. We've got a panic on our hands.
Well, how scary can a shark movie really be when it's plainly not the swimming season and you're in a country where people enjoy eating shark fin soup? This is Irv Chapman, ABC News, Tokyo.
一般席の方は1階でご覧くださいませ。エスカレーター登ったところが1階でございます。
いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃいませ。
この回まもなく終了いたしますのでお早めにご入場くださいませ。いらっしゃいませ、いらっしゃいませ。はい、まもなくこの回は終了でございます。お早めにご入場くださいませ。
And please take one. Well, how scary can a shark movie really be when it's plainly not the swimming season and you're in a country where people enjoy eating shark fin soup? This is Irv Chapman, ABC News, Tokyo. Take two. Well, how scary can a shark movie be, after all, when it's plainly not the swimming season and you're in a country where people enjoy eating shark fin soup? This is Irv Chapman, ABC News, Tokyo. Well, how scary can a shark movie be, after all, when it's plainly not the swimming season and you're in a country where people enjoy eating shark fin soup? This is Irv Chapman, ABC News, Tokyo. We do what? Well, how scary can a shark movie really be when you're, again...
That a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. 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 You
You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous, but you kept swimming anyway.
You yelled barracuda. Everybody said, huh? What did you lie?
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach? Yeah.
What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine. We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
本日はご来店いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。よろしくお願いします。みんなが死んだらそう思われたんですね。
南島にアメリカと呼ばれるところがある。そこにはいつも
右側に進んで右側ほら
はい、ただいま一番席が混み合っております。ご覧のためご連絡ください。それでは一番。本日は両面でこの今来週でき
それでは
開演いたしますのでお早くご入場くださいませ。ご利用ください。
ああ、ここ。
It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws.
ことやんのかってか？そんなことやると思えないってか？
誰もでも来ちゃったな。
relentless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw.
あまり怖くないと言われています。しかしその姿を対面から見ていると、やはり不気味な印象を感じる。
Alright, that's enough. Cut!